What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Iron Maiden. We're going back to the 2000 album Brave New World, first album with both Dickinson and Smith back in the group. And we're going to listen to the tune, which, from what I understand, I forget where I read this, but, again, as I've explained in a number of videos, my deep dive and adamant interest in Iron Maiden began about, 6-7 years ago when a friend of mine encouraged me to take a closer look, even though I was familiar with one or two tunes before that. But I remember reading when I was first doing that deep dive and going through all the albums for which Bruce was the singer. When I got to this album, I remember reading that this track, the opening track on the album, The Wicker Man, is the first track they recorded with Bruce back on vocals. So, this is a reconfiguration of an earlier lineup of the band that I think for many people is the classic lineup. So, again, I wasn't paying attention to them at the time, but I get that for many people this would have been a very exciting album, and I think it is quite critically acclaimed. So, ultimately, I enjoy it. I don't know it quite as well as I've talked about this before, but, having done this deep dive in the last 6 or 7 years, because I listened to the albums from the 80s first, and then, the 90s, or at least the beginning of the 90s, and then jumping ahead to Brave New World, because, again, I've only focused on the albums where Bruce is singer. It just is a simple consequence of, the logistics of that I've now listened to the 80s albums more than I've listened to the, say, post or 2000 and afterward albums, just because I got to those later, and even though I re-listened to all the albums, again, I re-listened to the 80s ones, I've now re-listened to them more times. So, again, I know this album, but not as well as Number of the Beast or Power Slave and so on. What I remember about this tune is it has, some different tempo changes like all their tracks. It has a couple awesome solos, both Smith and Murray, I believe. I don't think it's Yannick Gers, although he's also in the group at this point, so they have, 3 guitarists. Either way, what I remember about the lyrics, it obviously is playing off of the horror movie and the, I think Celtic. I think it was originally a Celtic tradition. But yeah, the idea of a Wicker Man where, families would gather around as they burned it, and, there are different cultural expressions and reasons for that. But it definitely plays on that imagery, because there's the idea of setting the Wicker Man alight, and, talks about families gathering around it. But there's also, like, when fate confronts you and, it pushes you down and you want to say something, but you're not quite up to the moment and you're sort of stunned by everything. And, it's about the, like, eternity, dying, but also, like, eternity. So there's something bigger happening, I think, than just making reference to the tradition of the Wicker Man, or specifically the film from, I think, the early 70s. But I do think also that it's perhaps a lesson or a comment or a commentary on the way in which a lot of people they see, because it talks about the explosions happening every day and so on, and most people just kind of go about their lives, and then when fate is right at their door, they're sort of stunned into silence, they're shocked, they don't quite know what to do, and I think the song is making the observation that there are things happening that are significant and perhaps less than savory, but people generally just kind of go about their business and they don't really pay too much attention to it or don't react to it. And then when that kind of thing comes to them, it's like, oh wow, I can't believe this is happening. I don't even know what to do. I sort of froze in the moment because fate is here for me, and I thought it was only something happening, over there or in these other places. So, quite apart from the Wicker Man reference and the, again, historical and Celtic cultural reference, I do think there's a metaphor here that could be applied more broadly to all people, living in modern times. So, in any case, I'll stop talking. Let's get it. This is Iron Maiden from Brave New World, and the tune is The Wicker Man.
Gotta do. Yeah, time is
Listen to the drumming. That's insane. There are no solos like Maiden solos. There just aren't. Fantastic. Again, for me, it was literally just, the moment I finished going through, what is it, No Prayer for the Dying? It's Fear the Dark. No Prayer for the Dying, then Fear the Dark. And then, again, skipping the other stuff they did in the 90s with a different singer. For me, it was literally just, the next day or like a couple of days later, I started Brave New World. But I get for people who perhaps... and again, I'm sure there's many Iron Maiden fans who enjoy what they did with other singers, both before Bruce and during the period of the 90s with, Blaze Bayley, I think. But ultimately, like I said, because my only reference point to the songs I knew going into this, now several year old deep dive were Bruce songs. That was just and again, my friend had sort of pushed me in that direction in the first place. In any case, I get for a lot of Iron Maiden fans, it was probably a really exciting thing that, oh crap, the old version of the band is back together and, they're coming out with new material. So I can't quite appreciate what that would have been like in the moment, but I was thinking about that as I began going through this album. So again, big shout out to Iron Maiden, big shout out to their longevity, big shout out to this album. And yeah, like I said, as far as I could tell, it's doing those different things. It's making reference to the Wicker Man, like historically, but also seemingly with the horror movie atmosphere of the film, but also speaking to larger, like, human considerations about life and about, what you do with your life and the way you view what happens to other people until, oh wow, suddenly it's happening to me. It feels very different. I wasn't prepared for this. So, I feel like there was a lot of that going on in the themes. Let me know if you have a different angle, or like a more specific take. But yeah, I really enjoyed this tune. Again, I'll just keep going through the different Iron Maiden songs. Because this deep dive wasn't like a let's just go from the beginning like I've done for other deep dives. I've just continued to jump around whatever feels right in the moment. So I'll continue to do that. But if you do have a request, that's one I haven't done yet, which again, I have an Iron Maiden playlist. You can just open that up and just, scroll through or even keyword search to see if I've already done a song. But if I haven't, I'd love to take a reaction or a request, I should say. So do let me know what you think. Luca and I will see you next time. Peace.